Amidst the hustle and bustle of daily responsibilities, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, to feel irritable, to feel anxious or agitated. Finding a moment of peace and clarity in today's fast-paced world can seem like a daunting task. And yet, perhaps now more than ever, we need to find time to slow down and touch in with the present moment. Practicing mindfulness in everyday life fosters a sense of calm and clarity amidst the chaos. By bringing mindful awareness to ordinary routine activities and engaging more fully and attentively, our ordinary daily experience becomes enriched. We come to see and appreciate a great many things which we often overlook, and to find joy in the simple things. Over time, this practice can reduce stress, enhance concentration, and promote overall emotional well-being. Incorporating mindfulness into everyday life doesn't require elaborate rituals or significant time commitments, nor does it require a formal meditation practice. While formal meditation is a powerful way to develop mindfulness, it's not the only way. By making a conscious intention to be mindful in our daily activities, we can cultivate a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment, one moment at a time. Mindfulness simply means being fully present and attentive to the moment. Fully attentive to whatever may be going on at the moment, to whatever you may be doing at any given moment, giving it your full attention rather than being lost in thought or imagination. If you begin to observe yourself, you may notice that most of the time your attention is divided between whatever it is that you're doing in the moment and whatever you may be thinking about, which may often be something completely unrelated. Perhaps you've had the experience of having driven someplace, and upon arriving you don't quite recall having driven there. Or maybe you just have some vague recollection of the drive, but you weren't really paying attention. It was as if your body was on autopilot while your mind was someplace else, wandering off in imagination, thinking about something that happened in the past, or imagining the future, or just imagining some hypothetical scenario, daydreaming, fantasizing, or ruminating. But whatever the case, your body was engaged in the activity of driving, but your attention was someplace else. And there are so many situations in which this occurs. It's often when we're engaged in some activity that doesn't require any thought, because we've done it so many times that it's become automatic and mechanical. And so it frees us from the need to think about it. And what do we do when we don't have to think about something? We think about something else. But we can also utilize those moments to practice mindfulness. All we have to do is give it our full attention. And we can do this by bringing our attention to the senses, so that whatever you may be doing, you give your full attention to the sensory experience of it. When you go for a walk, just notice the sensation of walking. Notice the feeling of your feet touching the ground. Notice the feel of the breeze on your skin, or the warmth of the sun, or the feel of the rain, whatever the weather happens to be. And you observe your surroundings, noticing all the colors, noticing all the details, noticing the scent in the air, and noticing the sounds occurring all around you. I find that listening attentively is a really easy way to be mindful, because to really listen, you have to be very quiet, and not just quiet outwardly, but inwardly as well. And just by listening attentively, the mind quiets down. There was a profound moment for me one evening when I was sitting outside, feeling deeply depressed. My mind was rambling on incessantly, ruminating over the past, worrying about the future, feeling dissatisfied with my present circumstances. And all of a sudden, I heard the faint sound of an owl that I had never heard before. And so I became very curious. I began to listen to see if I might hear it again. And there was a long pause between its calls. And because it was so late in the evening as well as during the winter, there was a profound silence in that space. And as I gave my full attention to just listening, my mind also became silent. I continued to just sit quietly and listen. I'm not sure for how long, but during that time I felt a deep sense of peace, which was really punctuated by the contrast of how I had been feeling just minutes before, feeling depressed and anxious and restless. All of that had now dissipated, and all I had done was step out of the mind and into the moment. What I had discovered was that there is a profound peace within us that is always there, always available, but often obscured by incessant thinking, and so it goes unnoticed. But in those moments of silence, when the mind settles down, we become receptive to it. And we've all had these kinds of moments in our lives. It may have been when you were watching the sunset, or looking into the eyes of a newborn child, or listening to music, or swept up in dance, or perhaps while playing a sport, or painting, or watching the leaves fall. There can be so many moments like this that draw us out from the mind and into the moment. Moments in which all thinking ceases. And sometimes those moments are so brief that we quickly forget them. We go right back into thinking about all our problems, our mistakes, our worries, our unfulfilled desires, and so on. We go right back into thinking and we lose touch with it. But we can learn to tap into that silence, into that peace, into presence. And it's the kinds of activities that don't require us to think that offer us the best opportunity to just be present. And maybe you're washing the dishes or sweeping the floor, or maybe you're taking a walk or driving someplace, or you may be engaged in some kind of work or manual labor or exercise, or preparing a meal, or sitting down to eat. How often when we eat do we really savor our food? How often do we really give attention to the flavor and texture of the food? Next time you take a bite of something, just take a moment to really be with that experience, to really appreciate the experience, and to give it your full attention. And we can begin our day in mindfulness from the moment you wake up in the morning. Whatever your routine happens to be, whatever little things you do at the start of your day, when you're brushing your teeth or making a cup of coffee, to just fully be with that activity. And it certainly doesn't hurt to have a meditation practice, even if it's an informal practice. Something that I like to do first thing in the morning is to just take a moment to go outside and sit, even if just for a few minutes. And while I'm sitting, I just give my attention to the sounds occurring in the space around me. The sound of the birds beginning their morning song, the sound of a car starting up or driving by, whatever sounds may be occurring at that moment, and just noticing without judgment, without interpretation, but just listening with your full attention. And at the same time, touching in with the breath, noticing the sensation of the breath. And this is something that we can do at any time. We can take a moment to just touch in with the breath. The breath can be our gateway to the present moment. And this is why in meditation practice, we usually begin by bringing our attention to the breath. But even in ordinary everyday activities, we can touch in with the present moment through the gateway of the breath. All throughout the day, we can take a moment here and there to pause and to shift our attention to the breath. Sometimes consciously taking a long, deep breath just to help settle us into the moment. And then just focusing our attention on the sensation of the air coming in and going out. And even noticing the subtle pause between each breath. And this simple practice will anchor your attention in the present moment. Whenever you're distracted, whenever you're feeling agitated or stressed, when you're feeling anxious or angry or overwhelmed, you can take a moment to pause, to close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath and feel into the fullness of the moment. And as you do this, everything slows down. Everything begins to soften and settle. And if we give our full attention to the sensation of the breath, even the mind will settle. And in that moment, there is a profound sense of calm and clarity. But this isn't something to be reserved only for stressful moments. We can do this at any moment. And the more we do this, the more it becomes our natural tendency. It begins as something very intentional, something that perhaps we have to remind ourselves to do. But if we're practicing mindfulness regularly, it simply becomes our natural way of being. Naturally and effortlessly, we give our attention to whatever is happening in the moment. We find that we're much more attentive, much more focused, more calm and relaxed. And the whole quality of life changes. We may find that we feel much more content, more at peace, that we feel happier in life, even though nothing externally has really changed. What has changed is our inner state of being. And it's really our inner state of being that determines the quality of our experience. When we're engaged in life with mindfulness, ordinary moments can become vibrant. Our senses become heightened. We notice subtleties that otherwise go unnoticed because we simply weren't paying attention. And we can appreciate so many things that we normally take for granted. We begin to see beauty where we had failed to see it previously. Moments that we might otherwise consider dull or monotonous or boring can become quite interesting or satisfying or even enjoyable. Because it's not so much about what you're doing in that moment, but how you go about doing it. It's about the quality of your attention in that moment. It's interesting that when you cultivate mindfulness in everyday life, you become quite content with ordinary moments. Most people are always looking for fulfillment in the next moment. Most people are chasing after some pleasure or excitement, unable to enjoy the moment, unable to enjoy the simple things, unable to appreciate the ordinary moments. And therefore, life tends not to be very enjoyable because most of life is comprised of ordinary moments. And so most people spend their time thinking about being someplace else or doing something else rather than being fully present where they are in the moment. And this moment is all you really have. There are many people who often feel that they're missing out on life. And they are, because life is happening right here, right now, in this moment. And most people are not living in this moment. They're daydreaming about being someplace else. They're ruminating about the past or fantasizing about the future, and they're missing out on the present moment. And this is where life is happening. It's happening right now, in this very moment. So, as you go about your day, you might look for these opportunities to just be present, to be mindful, to be attentive. Or you might just observe how often you're distracted, to notice the ways in which the mind pulls your attention away from the moment and into imagination. Or to notice how you go through so many activities unconsciously, automatically, without giving it any attention. And then to see if you can shift your attention for a moment, to just feel into the fullness of the moment, to touch in with the breath, to touch in with all of your senses, to listen attentively, to look, to feel, to taste attentively, to just open your attention more fully to what is occurring in the moment. Practicing mindfulness in everyday life offers us a powerful antidote to all of the distractions and stresses of modern living, encouraging mental clarity and focus, greater emotional regulation, along with a deeper sense of peace and contentment, all of which can contribute to a more meaningful and fulfilling way of life.